So we ask all the guests to please stay muted while our speakers are sharing their stories, to listen and respect their experiences. If you have any questions or comments, the chat will be open for you to share, and we will try to answer as many as we can once the speakers are done sharing. Now, let me introduce the person who has been working nonstop over the last few months to bring her idea to light, bring us all together to celebrate Asian Heritage Month in such a unique way for my first time with the BGC Albion Club, Miss Talir Sivabhaskaran.
Thanks, Jess. Hi guys, hi everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Tulir. That's kind of the more Tamil way to say it. I am a Tamil Canadian, and I was given the most amazing opportunity to plan, coordinate, run, and host this amazing event. I'm currently finished my first year at McMaster, and I'm majoring in health and society and to hopefully specialize in mental illnesses and addictions. This event is through an Anti-Racism Initiative microgrant that was offered from BGC Canada. And as a BGC Albion Club member for most of my youth, I just thought it was an amazing opportunity and that I should totally do it. I was actually introduced to the idea through one of our staff members, Ayan. So thank you, Ayan, so much. I just thought it was an amazing opportunity for me to show me as well as educate my community about me, but also others who are like me. When I immediately wanted to do it, I didn't know what to speak on and how to organize such an event because I've never done this before. It's my first time doing such an event, but over everything, talking to Jessica and all the other staff, I was able to come up with this idea. I applied, and thankfully by January 2021, it got approved. So we've been working on this for months. And yeah, this is just awesome that all of you guys could come, and I really hope you all enjoy it.
Thanks, Talir. And yes, you've been working so hard. I'm Jessica. I'm one of the youth program coordinators with BGC Albion Club. I personally am an Indian Canadian who comes from a Punjabi background. Today, we have different speakers from all over South Asia that will be speaking about a variety of topics, as well as breaking down myths and truths about being brown. We want to talk about certain stereotypes that they may have faced within their own families and or communities that could include race, sex, gender, culture, privilege, inequality, oppression, and like stereotypes associated with their experiences growing up South Asian. The workshop may include experiences of topics such as sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, physical violence, and identity-based discrimination, as well as harassment. Acknowledge that this content may be difficult, and I also encourage you, please care for your own safety and well-being. If you need to step away anytime, please feel free to do so.
So I guess we should just get the show on the road. Before we do, we can't forget the awesome giveaways we have. We have a ton of giveaways throughout the event. We're supporting local small businesses, so make sure you stay until the end to win dinners up to $100 from local restaurants. And speaking of giveaways, we have a few giveaways right now. So if you can pay attention to Jess, she'll start the giveaways.
So it's a very simple giveaway. I'm just opening the package. Our first giveaway is 2 books that was written by a South Asian artist. These are guided journals. She's one of our own. Shweta started her own business. She wrote a book called The Art of Emotion. We'll be giving away 2 copies of this to 2 lucky winners. It's very simple. I'm going to be asking you 3 questions. The person with the fastest response in the chat box will win one of the 2 books. We will have 2 winners in total. Our amazing staff, Tanya and Nana, will be monitoring the chat for us, and you have about 15 seconds to answer each question. The fastest and most correct answer will be our winner. So try to answer all 3 questions so you can get the prize. Should we ask the first one? Yeah, I'm gonna go right into it. So, how many countries are in South Asia? You get 15 seconds. Do not Google. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the correct answer is there are 8 countries in South Asia. The countries are Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and the Maldives. Me personally, I learned this while we were starting on this project. I never knew that Afghanistan, I was considered that part of the Middle East. So I learned something new, which is every day we always want to learn something new. But Afghanistan is actually, with the Maldives, considered to be a part of South Asia. Next question, name 3 languages spoken in South Asia. Nice. Okay, so everything that was said in the chat was right. Answers could have been Hindi, Urdu, Tamil, Bengali, Nepali, Punjabi, Pali, Marathi, Sanskrit. South Asia has so many different countries, so many different languages, so many different dialects that there's so many different languages that you could have named. Last question. If you've been following us on our Instagram page, every Friday we've been posting some South Asian icons. Not only are they South Asian icons, they're Canadian South Asian icons. So I want you to name 2 South Asian Canadian icons. 15 seconds. Again, the 2 winners will be receiving 2 of these books, Art of Emotion. It was created by Shweta, amazing graphic designer, guided dealing emotions. It's a journal. It's amazing stuff in here, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go on. What's next?
So, we are going to be having our first speaker, who I'm really excited for. So yes, our first speaker is from Pakistan. Our first speaker is Alia. She is a 20-year-old undergrad student of U of T. She is passionate about empowering women around her by speaking her truth as a young Pakistani Canadian Muslim and being open to hear the stories of those around her. Please welcome Alia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Okay, adab to all of you, which is a greeting in Urdu to say hi. My name is Ilia Batul. I am a 20-year-old Pakistani Canadian Muslim. I was born and raised in Pakistan. I lived there for 13 years of my life. And my family and I migrated to Canada in September of 2014. And once I arrived here, I was like, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to make my mark and I'm going to make Pakistan proud. And I had that in me because while growing up, I used to watch a lot of television and, you know, they have the news on back home. And there would be headlines and like breaking news of students in Pakistan and who went abroad, who studied and who had academic and extracurricular success, and they were highlighted and the country was proud of them. So before I started school, I was very excited. I was like, this is the perception I had of my country before I came here, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna make my country proud. People from Pakistan make like succeed a lot. That was my perception as a 13-year-old. So once I arrived here, I started school, grade 8. I went in first day. A group of girls came up to me. They greeted me. They were very nice to me. And then they asked me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Pakistan. And once the flag, Pakistan. So once I said I'm from Pakistan, they had a bit of confusion on their face. So I was a bit like, I didn't understand why they would like show that kind of expression, but I ignored it. And a few days later, we were sat in a class and we were reading paragraphs of a book, and I finished my part, and a few seats down there was another girl who was sat down who started reading, but she had an accent, and the other girls who asked me I was Pakistani and were confused and like showed like a bit of surprise snickered at her. So after class we had lunch. I went up to her and I asked her like, where are you from, and like, are you okay? They laughed at you, and she was like, yeah, I'm fine, it's okay. And the group of girls later came up to us and they asked me and her, they're like, wait, you both are from Pakistan. How come you guys sound so different? Aren't you guys like, aren't you like, because for her, I went to an English medium school. So for me, I was fluent in English. I did grow up reading and writing Urdu. English, sorry. I did grow up reading and writing English. So, and the other girl, maybe she was from a different part of the country and she didn't have the privilege that I did. So I explained it to them and they were like, okay, we understand, but it was a bit weird for me. First time I've been stereotyped because I was like, you know, I'm gonna make my country proud, and here people are thinking I can't even speak English. So a few months later, we moved houses, I moved school, and my home teacher, who was also South Asian and a millennial or in her 20s, early 20s, she used to read books every month. And I believe it was also Asian Heritage Month, because of which she decided to read Malala's book. And I was like, okay, it's Pakistani representation. But what ended up happening was the teacher asked me, before she started reading, she told me, she's like, you know what, Ilya, you're going to fact check the book for me. I was 13 at the time. I was like, I'm 13. I don't know what her story is. I haven't read the book. I cannot fact check. But I sat there and I was like, okay, because our like kids that are from like South Asia are very like respectful, and we're just like, yeah, we say okay to everything. So that happened, and when the teacher started reading the book, Malala mentions how she had to go to school walking, and she didn't have many books and supplies at school, and girls weren't allowed to get educated. So my teacher, I who just turned to me and who just looked at me and asked, Ilya, you probably can relate. Can you tell me how your experience was? Did you also go by foot? My mouth just dropped. I was like, what is happening? And I told her, I'm like, you know what? The place that I come from, it's a metropolitan city, Karachi. And I had access to internet. I had textbooks. I had schools which had proper four walls, and we had a security guard at the school too. And I explained to her, and I'm like, just like here in Canada, there are people living in like different parts of the country. They have different lifestyles. They have different privileges. Because like us living in Rexdale, we do not have the same access to utilities and stuff as people who are in downtown maybe. So I explained it to her in that way, and I explained it to her that Malala was obviously from a village and she had her struggles, and there was a difference in where we lived, which caused which is why I couldn't like explain to her or make her understand that I didn't have that experience. So these kind of things happened throughout high school as well. I had to defend my country, my culture, my religion a lot of times, explain to teachers. But one of the positives that I saw in the education system was in university. So my professor for a religion and culture course, he had an anonymous email where we could contact him and let him know if he had said something inappropriate or he had misquoted anything or misrepresented anything about a religion or a culture during lectures. And if any other students were showing prejudice in the chat, because the chat was going fast because we are on Zoom. So he was like, if in case anybody is disrespectful or if you feel disrespected by me, kindly let me know in a respectful manner. So that was an example of a positive communication between an educator and a student. And I really liked that. I really appreciated that, because we need to understand as people, like from that young age, when those girls in my class stereotyped me as someone who can't speak English or who has struggled speaking English, to coming to university and seeing professors respecting me, I think we have to understand as a society and as people that we cannot judge other people. We have to hold back our judgment, and we have to see people for who they are, not for the way we have where they might be represented in the media or by the society. We need to hold back our judgment. We need to look at them as who they are, because at the end of the day, not all brown people are the same.
And I'm very grateful for you coming on here and sharing your story. So thank you to Elia. And to continue on, I just want to ask if anyone had any questions for Elia to answer. If they had any queries, you can unmute.
I'll read a question in the chat. It says from Hadia, did being South Asian woman ever make you feel alone? Was it difficult for you to make friends and connect with others because they stereotyped you?
It was, and it still is. I was just having a conversation with my brother earlier. We were like, it's hard to make friends because for me personally, values need to be aligned and you need to be respectful of each other. That's the most important thing in a friendship. And it is hard still, but I have one or two good friends and I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Elia, for sharing.
Shout out to Lear.
Shout out, Elia. But thank you so much, Elia, for coming. it was a great presentation.
Amazing. So
Thank you
up
for
next,
having me, both of you.
anytime, anytime. Up next, we have our very own Khadija. Khadija is the manager of the ANS BGC Albion department. She's been serving in the community of North Etobicoke in her role, supporting youth and families for over 18 years. She was born and raised in South Asia, Pakistan. After completing her bachelor's degree in computer engineering in Pakistan, she moved to Germany for 3 years, and then she migrated to Canada. Rexdale was her first home in Canada.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the intro, Jessica. It's great to see you all. This looks really amazing. Thank you so much. I actually share the city with the earlier presentation. I'm also from Karachi, Pakistan. It's a metropolitan area. I grew up and I had my bachelor's degree completed from NED University of Engineering and Technology from Pakistan. And before I went to Germany for my higher studies, I got married. So back home, you know, and also in Islamic culture, you are only allowed to live with your husband to be when you have signed the marriage, you know, nikah or the contract. So I got married over the phone. So if that surprised anybody, you know, because my husband to be at that time was still in Germany and he had his exams going on. I got my visa for my master's degree and I had to be in Germany for a certain date. And there was no time in between when he could come in and we could do all the celebrations. So my marriage was pretty simple back home as compared to all the South Asian marriages. I actually have a picture I would like to show you. This is my marriage picture.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I was a bride. If you would see, like usually the brides wear a lot of, you know, tikka and all of that. I was pretty simple, you know, but it was lovely. Then I left Pakistan. It was about 1999. And I then went to Germany, did my studies over there. I unfortunately could not complete my master's because 9/11 happened around that time. And me and my husband decided to leave Germany because there was a lot of racism and prejudice towards Muslims in Germany, specifically in the university where we were in. I was in University of Hamburg-Harburg. It was a very diverse university, a lot of multi, you know, cultural students, but we felt that, you know, because the way I used to hijab, you know, a lot of our other friends were targeted, and we decided that we will move to Canada. Fairly quickly, we applied for immigration with me, my husband, and I had a baby at that time. So we moved to then Canada in 2001. So it doesn't look that long, but yeah, it's been about 19 years. And my first home in Canada was Rexdale. So I lived in 2737. I lived in 21 Panorama, 46 Panorama. So I lived about 6 years in Rexdale area, and that's where I got involved with Albion Neighborhood Services. So when I moved to Canada, I was always like a person, even back home, that would like to do a lot of volunteering and community work. So I got involved doing some community work with Albion Neighborhood Services. They had a position with some girls program. I got hired, and in the meantime, I was also, you know, doing some certifications in University of Toronto on nonprofit project management from University of Toronto. So in the meantime, you know, I completed that, and I was able to then, you know, acquire a position at Albion Neighborhood Services, which I'm still very grateful of. And since then, I am with Albion Neighborhood Services in the Department of Children and Youth. You know, I love working with children and youth, helping bring, you know, grants, making sure that we have programming for the youth in our community, to keep them engaged in positive and nurturing environment. And as you might think, I had engineering background, but yes, I never went back to engineering because I really love what I do, and I could still make use of a lot of my technological, skills in my current job. So I'm happy to be, in the position where I am. I have 3 children now. One, of course, was born in Germany, and the other 2 born in Canada. Yeah, I just miss Pakistan. It's been a while. I haven't been back home. So, hopefully one day I plan to go back and visit my country. I've only visited in about 19 years once, so I really miss back home. I guess that's it from me. I'm open for any questions, any inquiries.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Khadija? Khadija, I love your bridal picture. It's beautiful.
I've never
love
shared
that.
that picture, but yeah, that's
I
my
love it.
only picture, I guess, that I have.
So there's a question in the chat.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, sorry. Okay, so as the South Asian woman myself, I always have doubts or second thoughts when talking about my experiences I've been through. Have you felt this way when signing up to speak today?
So if this would have been, 15 years ago or so, then yes, I remember when I joined in Albion Neighborhood Services, obviously the culture and the background we come from, I wasn't as outspoken as I am today, but I just learned through time, especially being in a professional environment, and I'm not shy of talking at all. But yeah, I was a little hesitant, obviously, in the beginning, not particularly for this presentation, but way back, when I joined and when I had to speak in front of people, my cheeks will start burning and I feel like people are seeing me and I'm stuttering. But this is very natural, reactions, and it's very human, to get nervous and things like that. So, but I don't feel that anymore now. I just try to be as natural, I guess, as I can be. And if I have to follow a script, then yeah, I may I may become nervous because I'm not a very good script follower. But if it's just like, speaking and personal experiencing, I don't feel that shyness anymore.
I love the confidence. And I feel you with the redness. I get that too sometimes. Any other
We all do
questions?
at times.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so just now you mentioned that after the situation with 9/11, you had to move from Germany to here, and there was very drastic changes in your lifestyle. So based on like my experience, I know that often in situations where there is racism within the community, we experience the racist stereotypes and assumptions coming from our own race. For instance, like an example would be like brown/Asian parents pressurizing their children to live to stereotypes, like doing well in academics and more things along those lines. Like you have to do well in school, you're like a brown kid, And so I was wondering, once you came here, have you experienced something that like that once, like from your own community or the South Asian community?
Very good question, Ria. And I know, being a brown parent and raising kids here in the Western world and being a brown parent has been, has had its own challenges. Particularly for me, I did not have any pressures in a sense, either education-wise. I came in like, grown-up woman here in Canada, right? I was pretty, independent in making my decisions. So obviously, my parents or my even husband didn't have any influence on that. They were very supportive and very cooperative of that. And I think that a lot of even, bringing up children here in Canada has a lot to do with the parental style. And even with my kids, one of my daughters is in Ryerson University now. One of my other daughters is in grade 9 and my son is in grade 12. So being a brown parent here in Canada, I try to stick to the cultural values religious values that are very important to me. Obviously, educate my children, but I don't pose any pressure on my children, on any type. So whether it's like studying, I know it comes, something with South Asian, even back home, right? It was a lot of pressure of either being a doctor or an engineer, or you're nothing, right? But within my family, I'm the only engineer. My other sisters, they did what they wanted to do. I was a little studious, I would say, at that time, and I wanted to be. So I ended up in engineering, but I don't pressure my kids. They are free to do what they wish, what they love to do, and yeah, it's just that still instilling cultural values and religious values are an important part of my parenting, I would say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, thank you, Khadija, for sharing your story. It's amazing to see how far you've come. I do want to announce our winners for Art of Emotion books. We have selected from the chat who was the fastest at answering and the most correct, Nazia and Manpreet. So after the meeting is done, I will get in touch with you to mail this out to you. Ooh, it's getting lost in the background, but it's there. Amazing. So Talir, what's next?
Well, first of all, thank you, Khadija, and congratulations to the two people who won the Arts of Emotions. That's actually a really good one. I wish I was getting that book. But before we move on to our next speaker, I just wanted to ask a giveaway question. So for this question, it'll be like the fastest person to respond and the one that has like a really good answer. But the question is, why do you think it is important to bring awareness to the South Asian community?
Best answer is also getting a $30 Uber Eats voucher to include that. Feel free to unmute, or you can just be in the chat. It's up to you. Some great answers coming in the chat. We will continue, and Nana and Tanya will let us know the winner, and we'll come back with that very soon.
Yay! So our next speaker, or next few speakers, are from India. So next we have Shika, who is a senior policy advisor of the government of Ontario, developing social policy that is responsive, accessible, and effective, especially for marginalized communities, learning how to be better community members, and advocate for social justice for all, rethinking and reshaping social norms that they're more inclusive for, discussing and debating a range of topics from music to systemic barriers, and finally, doing her part to make the world around us more inclusive, just, and equitable. Welcome, Shika. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Shika. I'm speaking to you. Hang on. I'm a Zoom noob. I don't use Zoom. Actually, we use Microsoft at work, so I'm trying to get the window to pop up again. Okay, there you are. So I'm speaking to you from Vaughan, Ontario, and I respectfully acknowledge that I'm situated on traditional territories and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of New Credit First Nation. I was born and raised in Canada, both in Toronto and now I live in Vaughan. And my parents both immigrated here from Punjab, which is a province in India, about 30 years ago. So a little bit about me. I do work in public policy in the government. I went to York University for my undergrad. I did my Bachelor of Arts there, and then I did my Master of Public Service at Waterloo. I'm so humbled to be here today, mostly to listen and to learn from my community, but also to share my own perspective. I can't begin this presentation without acknowledging the public health crisis that India and many South Asian countries are dealing with as we speak. I know that this is weighing heavily on everyone, particularly the South Asian diaspora. And it's almost as if we're fighting two pandemics at once, one back in our homeland that we're so far away from and we often feel helpless about. And then another one here in Ontario, where South Asians are disproportionately impacted by the pandemic here, simply because of the jobs that many South Asians occupied, absence of support, public support, fair wages, paid sick leave, and unemployment, which has disproportionately impacted people of color. So, just a gentle reminder to just take care of yourselves and your families. And I'm sending everyone, positive thoughts and hopes that we're out of this and we can learn from all of the inequities that are so apparent and in front of us today. So on to the topic of today's discussion. So the panelists and myself, we were asked to share our stories and perspectives as South Asians, and the Albion Neighborhood Services kindly gave us creative freedom to present. So I'm going to share a bit about my experience and I guess the experience that I have as a South Asian in Canada, in Toronto, as a young professional, and then also speak about some reflection that I've been doing over the last year, kind of in this constant stay-at-home order that we've been in Ontario, 14 months and counting. So to start, I do work in a corporate environment, which comes with its challenges, some more obvious than others. I work in a white male-dominated workplace, so I stick out at work every single day. Almost every day I'm asked how to pronounce my name, I'm asked where I'm from, and these are questions that I've just gotten used to. I don't find them offensive depending on how it's delivered. But as with most corporate work environments, I feel as though people of color who work in corporate environments and in any workplace, we have very small margins of error. And what I mean by that is I feel like we're under this constant, we have these constant expectations and burdens and this feeling that we have to be perfect, and we're held to a higher degree of criticism and scrutiny than our counterparts, especially our counterparts who are not colored. Being a woman adds more layers to my unique experience, just in Canada in general. Women are really only entered the workplace recently, let alone immigrant women. So there are a lot of systemic barriers that I'm trying to break every day. I think even just my presence in the workplace serves as a bit of a protest. But there are productive conversations that need to be had in especially corporate environments. And this is not like news at all. Like, this is something that we acknowledge, or our executive management has acknowledged at work quite regularly. This commitment to anti-racism, hiring people of color and South Asian people at every level, entry level and senior management. So I think that my experiences, as the last two speakers talked about, ring true for many South Asian, especially South Asian women, across all industries and sectors, and this constant need to just be your best and represent those who are perhaps not at this metaphorical table, but also trying to maneuver your way through adulthood and workplaces and work issues and all of that. So I think the next thing that I wanted to talk about, because I know we have a bit of a time crunch, this part might be a little bit more controversial, but I'll say it anyways, and it's something that I ran through with Jessica. I believe that in order to improve our future, our children's futures, and build a better Canada, Canada is a settler colonial country. It is by nature a melting pot of many, many different backgrounds. In order for Canada to be more equal and fair tomorrow, we each kind of need to do a bit of self-reflection and map ourselves and our experiences and situate ourselves in and where how our identity and our intersectional identity plays into our experience. So the topic of today's discussion is that not all brown people are the same. And I really love that theme. I love that topic. And I'm sharing my personal reflections with you in hopes that it inspires others to do the same. And therefore we all become better allies for each other, but also just, for all people of color all around the world. In Canada especially, and this kind of goes back to my workplace experience, I feel like all South Asians and brown people are labeled as the same. We're seen as the same. No one's ever asked me, like, are you Punjabi or are you Gujarati? Like, that's not a question that comes up in the workplace. It's which country are you from? And 9 times out of 10, my coworkers can't guess that I'm from India. They think that I'm from another country. And they don't even know what the difference is, to be completely honest, between those countries. But I think that us as South Asians have a lot of, we have an obligation to do some self-reflection and understand the diversity of our own experiences. So over the last year, being in stay-at-home orders, being at home, I've been trying to learn a lot more about just Indian history, and particularly Hinduism. So my family is Hindu, and yoga. And I just did this out of curiosity, honestly, like it's just one of those quarantine hobbies. But through this personal work, I came to terms with a lot of dark aspects of our history, and particularly my family's history. And it dawned on me that in Canada, I'm seen as a minority, or I am a minority, but back home, back in India, my family is actually from the dominant class and has benefited from systems of oppression that have been imposed on other Indians and other brown people. And this is all called intersectionality, which some of you might be aware of the term, some of you might not, but it's just this concept that you're not just brown, you're not just Indian, you are an Indian woman. Casteism is quote unquote abolished in India, but it's not. It's like a big part of the socioeconomic structures in India. So, as a South Asian, identify what your caste is and what privileges that provides you, or how that has hindered your family through no fault of your own. I think, sorry, I'm reading some notes and I'm losing track of myself. And I had to do a lot of self-reflection. So for background, my family is Hindu, as I said, but we're also Brahmin. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the caste system, it's this very archaic system that, places Hindus in different categories. I think there's about 5, and these are hereditary categories. You're born into them. And back in the day, and still to this day, they dictate the rights that you have. They dictate your ability to go get educated, your ability to pray, your ability to speak your Indigenous language, your ability to do all of that. And through the past year, when I've been learning about the history of yoga and Hinduism specifically, and how my ancestors in many ways gatekept this religion and this spiritual practice, it dawned on me that I need to understand my background, and in order to better understand and fight for the struggles of all South Asians. India currently is governed by a Hindu supremacist regime. And what I mean by that is that the government of the day is very pro-Hindu. And if you're not Hindu, life is very difficult for you. And I'm saying that as a Hindu, I acknowledge that privilege and the challenges that places on people who are not as privileged as my family. The caste system, like I said, is technically abolished, but it's alive and well, and it dictates a lot of people's lives and socioeconomic outcomes. And I say all this because, we're in Canada and we're kind of lumped together, but we also need to acknowledge our histories, what biases we're bringing to Canada from home, how that impacts how we interact with each other. And I think here especially, when we're fighting for the rights of other South Asians, we have to understand whether we are at the center of that and a victim of that oppression, or if we're an ally. So I'll give you an example of that. I'm Indian, I'm South Asian, I'm not Muslim, and I can't speak to Islamophobia. And But what I can do is amplify the voices of South Asians who, or anyone around the world who experiences Islamophobia. I can't own that struggle and claim that I understand what they're going through, but I can be an attentive listener. I can be an ally and try to push for positive change. Another example is, you guys probably have seen all over social media, but the farmers protest, for example, the farmers protest is a protest against very discriminatory laws that are changing and could deeply impact the lives and livelihoods of farmers in India. And this disproportionately impacts Sikh Punjabi people. I'm Punjabi, but I'm not Sikh, and I can't own that struggle and claim or victimize myself or ask for pity from, you know, Canadians in Canada, because that my family's not the one struggling. But what I can do is listen to those who are going through whatever systemic struggles they're going through, be an ally, be an attentive learner, and then and go from there. And that, I think when we're talking about not all, or all brown people are not the same, I think it's so true. We have such a diverse and complex history. There are times where we are victims of oppression, but there are times, such as myself, where we benefit from systems of oppression. And I think we need to name that. We need to identify that, name that, do some self-reflection, you know, understand history. And I think in order to build a better world back home and here, we can do that once we all understand our own intersectionality. So I don't know how much time I have left, but that's kind of my ramble. So in summary, you know, it's being a South Asian in Canada comes with a lot of its challenges. Working in a corporate environment comes with a lot of its challenges. While we're all fighting for each other's liberation and equality, also understand when and where you should be the center and the voice for a struggle, and where you should be an ally and maybe be an attentive learner and instead amplify other voices. Because not all brown people are the same. Everyone struggles differently. Many people for many, many years, such as my family, have benefited from the oppression of others for a long time. And I think it's up to our generation to undo that historic those historic harms and try to build a better future for everybody. And that's it.
Awesome, that was amazing. I really loved how you touched on so many different issues and aspects, and that was just truly amazing. Thank you so much, Shika, for coming and presenting. This is why we made it open, and so you could talk about anything and everything, right? So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And, if anyone in the chat or any participants have any questions or queries, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute.
Hello, I have a question. So similar to you, many youth now and also in the future are going to step into corporate environments like yours. So what advice would you give to a youth who's going into an environment like yours where they may possibly face the same obstacles, and how would you support them so that they can move forward in a positive manner in terms of like educating their peers on their racial/cultural backgrounds rather than let themselves down from these experiences of discrimination?
That's an amazing question. I would say first and foremost, I actually wanted to say this and I totally forgot, but so representation matters here in Canada. It matters in every single industry. So not just corporate, government, and business environments. And you don't just have to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Like one of my best friends, Shweta, is an artist. Representation matters everywhere. Follow your dreams. You're in Canada. A lot of our parents came here with nothing, in hopes that their children would have much less to struggle with than they did. Do whatever you can to get to where you feel you're meant to be. However, understand that no matter where you go, you're going to experience systemic racism, whether it's, you know, in your face or whether it's through like microaggressions. That's going to happen so long as we have a white dominant society. I think my biggest advice to you is just always be authentic in every place you possibly can. I know it's really hard, especially growing up in Canada. There are a lot of things that we've hidden from our culture, such as our food, because it smells a certain way, such as, you know, the way that we properly pronounce our names, just to fit into a mold. That was kind of what we used to do in the 90s and early 2000s. I think now what the trend is, and I'm so inspired to see people younger than me doing this, is they demand that everyone pronounces their name properly. They, you know, they speak, or they bring whatever food they want to at work, and they'll use the fridge and microwave and whatever, which is, I think it's so inspiring. I think even beyond that though, wherever you are, whatever impact you're making, whatever you're working on, just really be true to yourself. Don't try to mold yourself to fit, you know, cookie cutter ideals or ways of work or jobs or occupations or whatever, because truthfully, I think that that's done a lot of damage, and we're missing out on a lot of opportunities in Canada to be more inclusive and to be more representative. And what we actually need is representation everywhere in every single industry. We need people to be authentically themselves, to be proud of their country of origin, their family's history, understanding where their intersectionality. And what I've personally done, a commitment that I've made to myself is, you know, I've been very privileged to get, you know, an education and be able to enter and, you know, potentially get a seat at the table or whatever that means. My commitment to myself is to ensure that there's enough room for others after me, that I'm not shutting the door behind me. I'm opening it, and I want to keep it wide open for life. So I think, you know, be authentic, but also pay it forward whenever you make it. And you will 100% make it wherever you are. Just make sure to pay it forward and be there for others. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Hi, I'm Solange.
Hi.
I just wanted to say that I understand what you were saying when like people, they try to like hide their food from other people, because like even at school I see people, like maybe most South Asian people, they don't bring, like they'll bring something to work, like not to work but to school one day, and the people like make fun of it, like, ew, that smells so bad or something, and it'd be like it'd be kind of so mean, like there's just to watch and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, my mom is actually in this call right now. So she used to pack us Indian food, and I would be so like shy about eating it. And now in 2021, like we have turmeric lattes, we have dal being served in restaurants and all of that stuff. And, you know, back in the day, growing up in especially the early 2000s, it was unheard of to have this stuff like in mainstream, in the mainstream society. Now, everyone wants it. So embrace your culture. And that's probably because someone broke barriers somewhere and broke the ice. Embrace your culture, whether you're Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, whatever it is. Like, I think there's no more hiding your lunches, like eat it openly.
Yeah, thank you,
Shika. Thank you everyone for your questions. We are gonna move on to our next speaker. Shika, your experiences were amazing, and then thank you for sharing your story. Before I do introduce our speaker, I did want to say our winner for Talir's question is Gurnur. So Gurnur, I'll be in touch with you after meeting as well to get you your Uber Eats code. So next, even though we're in India, we did cross the border over to the States, and we invited a UC Davis grad who received his doctorate from the University of the Pacific. Currently, he's a clinical account manager at I might butcher this, I'm really bad with pronunciation, at Magellan RX Pharmaceuticals, which helps provide various states with Medicaid services to the underserved. Prior to this, he served as a clinical pharmacist, advanced practice practitioner, and HIV certified practitioner. He managed metabolic and HIV clinics with patients ranging from hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and diabetes and HIV. So we have Umang, who will be speaking now.
Thank you, Jess. Can you hear me okay? Cool, thank you. Before I even speak, I just have to warn everyone, I have a newborn, probably a few feet away from me. So if you hear noises, I swear that's not me. That's just my son. As mentioned, my name is Umang Patel. I believe I'm one of the few, if not the only speaker from the States. And so I believe all of our experiences can be somewhat similar. And I hope it translates across everyone listening today. Just a little bit of background. I was raised in New Jersey on the East Coast here in the States, and then Atlanta down in the dirty South. And both of these populations are highly dense with Indians. And when I was 6, my parents actually moved us to this mountain town here in California called Lake Tahoe. And I remember when I moved there, people who looked like me were rare and hard to come by. I was actually the only brown person in this mountain town. And the first ever friend I made, his name is Lance, and we're still friends to this day. He was so excited to meet me and immediately asked me what tribe I'm from. And so, to put a pin in that, there was no malice in his heart. He was 6. It was just, he purely did not know that there was another type of Indian. He thought I was Native American. And that kind of set a tone for my entire childhood here. As many of the other fellow speakers have experienced, being a first generation South Asian, especially in a mountain town, it comes with its shares of difficulties. As you know, the Canadians may have seen and probably have felt, it was particularly highlighted for us after 9/11, about 20 years ago. Anyone with a little extra melanin in their skin or funny name was considered a complicit or a traitor. And during your early teens, which is when I was going through that, you're dealing with so much hatred, just fueled with ignorance and racism. And as a teen, what do? You turn to your parents for advice and comfort, and they don't really know what's going on. They've never had to deal with something like this, and you're kind of going through it on your own. And it's difficult to feel it, whether it's those thinly veiled jokes you hear, the Apu references from The Simpsons, which it really strikes a nerve after a while, or hearing, extreme, just bomb jokes because you're brown and that's what people associate you with. And it slowly just chips away at you and who you are. And many people talk about the prejudice they experience here assimilating, and those all hold true. But when you're a first generation, whether you're Indian, you're Pakistani, you're any race or culture, when you're first generation, you're part of this unique and unprecedented generation because you're struggling to learn and embrace your culture that your parents and your grandparents are so proud of and want you to take on and shoulder for the family. But you're also grappling with this new environment that you're trying to be a part of as well, because that's home now. And, growing up, I was a diehard, every time I throw trash, I'd pretend I was Kobe, or I'd be rapping to Tupac in the car, but I'd also love to listen to Bhangra and Gerba. But you always felt torn because you didn't know who you were. You didn't know what your identity was. You have your parents on one hand yelling at you for not speaking Gujarati at home all the time, but then you have your other friends saying, why aren't you eating beef? Because it's delicious and it makes you look weird if you don't. And so you're constantly just pulled into two different directions. And it's not always as blatant. There were times where maybe some of you have heard this little colloquial greeting or acronym, just ABCD, American born, confused, Desi. And for those of you who may not know that, that just Desi is another word for a South Asian person, whether it's Pakistani, Indian, Bangladesh, etc. And it's just basically how it sounds: American born, confused, brown person. And it's just a lighthearted way of basically saying an Indian who was born outside of India is confused. He's confused about his culture. He's confused about his reality. He's confused about his existence. And you wouldn't believe how many times people have said this to me from my family back home in India, or those here, but they see themselves as more cultured and I'm less deserving of being cultured. And I feel like when all this happens, you start to question yourself. What am I? My Indian family made it clear I'm way too whitewashed to be Indian, but then my fellow friends here made it clear I'm too brown to be American. And so on one side of the globe, I'm too Indian, and on one side of the globe, I'm too white. And you lose your sense of identity and self-worth because of that. Now, I don't say all this to convey a sense of sadness or anything like that. I do want to say, as I grew and went to college, I met people just like me, going through the same path, walking the same path. Two of my best friends, one is Pakistani, the other is half black and half white, and both were walking the same path. Yeah, it's similar, but it's parallel. I didn't know what my Muslim Pakistani friend after 9/11 was going through, because his was probably way worse than me, or my other best friend who's half black, half white, especially now, is going through. But we felt it to some degree. And you learn that regardless of your background, culture, identity, whether you're Canadian or American, it took me years to finally understand that this sense of self-identity, sense of culture, sense of what makes Jessica Jessica or Shika Shika, it's not binary. You're not one culture or another. It's not a zero-sum equation. Your identity, your self-worth, and your self-esteem is a gradient, and you get to choose where that worth is, where that identity is, where that self-worth is. And earlier, as Shika stated, representation matters, and it's so important. It reignites this flame that's inside of you and lets you know, hey, you're not out of place. You do belong. And that was rekindled when I see Kumail Nanjiani doing movies and thirst trapping all the women around me. Oh, wow, they all want this guy too. Or you see Cal Penn in movies growing up. Or just last year, you see our first ever South Asian Black female vice president. And to other countries, I don't know if it was as big a deal in Canada or other countries around the globe, but here in America, it was a big deal because it reignited my sense of self-worth, because I'm brown, my wife's because she's brown and female, my best friend who's half black. And it showed us that we do belong here because of this one single act of representation. So I just want to, all of you are going through your own battles. Ones I'll never know, and I may relate to on a very low degree. I don't know what it's like to be a female. You're constantly swinging a hammer to shatter that glass ceiling. I see my wife do it on a day-by-day basis in the corporate world, and I will never know the struggle she has to go through, but I can empathize and see it and make sure I contribute to it. And again, I can't tell you how difficult it will be, but I can tell you it will get easier. It does get better, and you just need to stay the course. And to sum it up, when I find myself slowly regressing and asking myself about who I really am, it happens to this day. I turn to my favorite saying by E.E. Cummings, and it constantly reminds me to stay the course. And that saying is, to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. That's all I have.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Umang. I do want to add, the first time I actually met Umang, he was introduced to me as Manga Baji, and Baji is a sign of respect in the Punjabi culture, which means older brother. So major respect for sharing your story. Thank you so much for coming through. Do we have any questions for Umang? Feel free to unmute or just post it in the chat.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Rhea. First of all, thank you for sharing. But growing up, I didn't experience anything similar to you because I am not a first generation. As well as because when I was growing up as a child, my community, was quite diverse. But since we're talking about that, I've noticed that in many school systems, there could be a lack of inclusion, especially when it comes to different races and communities. Unfortunately, I did notice when I was in school that I saw a division in cultural groups of friends and kids. And I believe this came from what you explained in your experiences at a young age of differences between expectations of family and expectations of your friends that are a different race. I don't know, or I don't think that if this is necessarily a bad thing, but in certain situations, individuals may feel isolated and left out, similar to how you did and how you were struggling socially. That could depend on like you said, the foods they eat or the cultural practices. So if a youth were to approach you with a situation like that, how would you support them, and what would you advise them to feel more accepted in a number of social environments like friend groups or family?
That's a great question. I think there's when someone is craving or looking to be accepted, they start to, you know, look inward and try to change things about themselves. When you go to a new school, it's inherently kind of accepted to, oh, you know, they act or dress or say things a certain way. I'm going to act or dress or say things that way. I genuinely believe just stay true to who you are. If you are the way you are, people will see that. Unfortunately, it takes time. And being a child in a school time is not something you want to give up. You want to be accepted right away, but be who you are. You are the company you keep, and the people that are like you will slowly gravitate towards you, or the people that will uplift you will gravitate towards you, and that's the company you do want to keep.
That's true. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Umang. Thank you to Shika,
for sharing,
Alia.
Umang.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, and I just want to say thank you for sharing, Umang.
Thank you. Sorry, Jess, I saw one question. I think this is directed to me. Is it okay if I answer it real quick?
Of course, go for it.
All right, so I see a question that says, has your trauma and experiences still affect your day-to-day? Did you have anyone in your community to help you that has helped you heal? That's a great question. It definitely has affected me day-to-day. You know, being in a small mountain town, I was the only brown kid, essentially. My best friend was half black, half white. We were profiled a lot. And I don't know if I was profiled because I was with my best friend or vice versa, or just us together. And so yes, I'm not going to forget about that kind of things. And I do believe it's made me a better person. I'm more empathetic towards the struggles and realities that are happening in America in the last 4 years. It's been going on way longer, but you know what I mean. Unfortunately, I didn't really feel like I had many people in my community to help with. Mental health is a big stigma in the Indian community, and I assume in a lot of South Asian communities. And one of those things where, you know, it's no fault of my parents. It's just kind of how they were raised, and it's that barrier is you just suck it up and deal with it. You're a boy, so, you know, don't cry about little things, just get through it. And it was luckily my elder cousins, my siblings, who kind of gave me strength and persistence through it. And now I have nephews and nieces, and if their parents are still like that, my cousins' kids, if they're still like that, I make sure they have my wife and I as a support system or someone to turn to, so we can help them out. So my thing is just pay it forward to the next generation and just keep raising them right.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Alia, Khadija, Umang, and Shika, for sharing your experiences and your stories. And now we're gonna literally get moving. What's to there?
So next we have Samara leading a 10-minute Bollywood fusion workout. Samara comes from a biracial background. Her dad is from Lahore, Pakistan, and her mom is a Filipina from Spain. She started her dance school, Fusion Cardio Toronto, to provide a fun and accessible dance and fitness class for women and girls in Toronto. She offers a large variety of diverse dances and classes as well. Welcome, Samara, and thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for coming.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Samara.
Hi. Great. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this up really quickly. All right, because perfect. So everyone, she just said it. I'm here to get you moving. I'm not really going to go into too much about my background, except for the fact, okay, like I guess I should explain how I got to where I am. So my dad's from Pakistan, and he likes to dance. And my mom's Filipina, and she likes to dance. And they met at a disco in Toronto. And I guess that kind of paved the way for me, because now I have a dance and fitness school, right? You know, I did half my master's. I didn't really go into it. I left it. And I decided to go strictly into what I loved as a kid, which was kind of getting moving. I was always kind of heavier as a kid, and I wanted a way to stay fit. And I ended up running a lot of pilots in collaboration with the Afghan Women's Organization, Flemington Health Center. Later on, Albion Neighborhood Services too, as well, but with community organizations. So I piloted a lot of projects for newcomers with a refugee background. And actually, it was the Bollywood that took off. So I'm trained mostly in Latin and Afro-Latin, so specifically. So to this day, through our team, most are newcomers from India. We have Toronto's only women's Bollywood dance and fitness program across 4 locations. We're really lucky. I'm not promoting it because I won't tell you where we are, but we're really lucky. And it is, despite COVID, we're thriving online because of community partners like Albion Neighborhood Services, our team, and all of our community partners. We partner with about 20 community organizations. And when I say I'm accessible, we go directly into the community. You have a kitchen space, we're there. Most of us are qualified fitness specialists who are also dancers. So today, I'm here to pair my love of Bollywood music, I guess passed down to me through my dad. We had 3 Bollywood movies as a kid, that's all we had. My mother also speaks Spanish. So, and then the Latin dance training I used together. So this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna learn 2 salsa moves, okay? And 1 iconic Bollywood move from this song, because I really like this song. And that's it, into this really pretty song. So I'm gonna ask you to join me, okay? So please, I can't see, none of your cameras are on. Can they turn their cameras on?
If you're comfortable and you want to get moving with Samara, cameras on, I'll move too.
Please join me. I'm here to engage with you. So,
I'll join you too, don't worry. I'm jumping in.
Yes, and so should Tanya. She should too. So,
oh, Tanya, let's go. Let's go.
Here we go. Yeah, I see. I love it. A few things. So please make sure you have a clear space, okay? You don't want to hurt yourself. Okay, objects don't feel really good on the foot. I do suggest sneakers, but I know most of you are at home, so I'm not going to ask you. However, if you are on carpet, like a carpet, I'm going to ask you to remove your socks to reduce any kind of friction that you might have. Have water whenever you want. The third thing is, when in doubt, we march it out, except when we're in pain. If you are pregnant and you've just given birth, because I see some women here, if you have a past injury or a current one, and you experience any pain, you must stop. You can come when you're ready. And the last thing is, we always breathe. The more we breathe, the longer we can go. So here we go. I'm going to show you. So in Latin dance or Afro-Latin dances, 1 movement usually consists of 8 counts, okay? Today you're learning 2 core salsa moves, which I argue is from Cuba, but many people say Puerto Rico, okay? So, but here we go. We're going to start with this foot. So my left is your right. And you're going to give me 8 taps with both legs. So it looks like this. Tap, tap. I don't see the movement, Tanya and Jessica. Tap, right? And here we go with 8 counts, starting with this leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes! Oh, I love it. I love it, Tasnia. I love it. I love it. She's in the outfit. She looks good. That's how you dance when you go to a salsa. You really actually Latin jazz dance. Okay, here we go. But we're going to do it 8 times. So I'm going to speed it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks good. Yeah, and I love this young lady, this Maggie. You're doing a really great job. Love it. So, but we're going to do a sequence. So we're going to break down steps. So we're going to do 4. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your second core movement is also the salsa side step. So the knees bent, the head up. We're going to take the same foot that we started with, and we're going to start the next movement with that. So it's 1, 2, 3. Good. 4, we pause. This foot comes out. 5, 6, 7. So it looks like this. Whatever we do on this side, we do on this side. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. You notice I'm silent on the 4 because I'm trying to give you time to catch up and also to breathe. So this is how this set looks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, or I'll just say it like this. Forward, 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 out, in, 1, 2, 3. Keep going, don't stop. In, out, again, forward, 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 forward. And I love it. Tanya looks good. So you've done that so well. We're going to repeat that twice. You ready? So we have this move and this move. We're going to repeat the segment twice. So looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, exactly. Although I think I'm probably gonna add in 4 more. I made a mistake, but we're gonna practice. We're gonna practice. See, I have a company. I forget stuff, right? I'm not above mistakes. you seem to have momentum. So we are going to do 4. We can go a bit faster if we keep the steps smaller. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, out, in, out, in, out, in, again, again. Forward, 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 out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. Yes, and your final move. So this song, she's talking about a beach. Go a beach, like it's summertime and I want to be in the beach, right? So I want you to picture that. I want you to pretend you're on a beach, you're looking for a boat, you're looking for some friends, whatever, somebody. I mean, you're a bit young, some of you. Anyway, so you're actually gonna search, you're gonna hunt. So we ended off with this foot back with your together, so we collected. We're gonna step out with the same foot we started each of the first 2 moves with, and we are gonna hunt. We're gonna go up, down, 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 up, 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 hand switch. What we did on this side, we're gonna do on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have a bit of a squat in there, right? The African squat, but it's fun. So again, together. At 4, 3, 2, again, up, down, 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 up, up, hand switch, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You found something, right? So let's do everything we've done from the top. Good job, Chelsea. Maggie, you're really good. Solange, I love it. I love it. So we're gonna do it without music once, and then we're gonna do it to music 3 times, and then you're gonna perform for me. And that's it. Here we go. On the count of 4, I'm kind of one we're gonna start. I'll say go. Okay. So 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, again. 1, 2, 3, 4, out, in, out, in, and out, in. Tassie, I love it. And we're gonna hunt. Oh, I see something. I'm gonna keep gazing. Yes, I did have an option for a pose. So if you're a gentleman, I'm gonna show you gentleman styling now. We'll do it one more time, and then we're gonna go practice to music, okay? So here we go, on the count of 4, 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So gentleman style is a little bit stronger, okay? But I want you to be included too, because when it comes to line dancing, I prefer male styling. He's gonna search out and up. Oh, found something. And he's gonna rock back, okay? Here we go, we're gonna go right into it. We're too litty. I don't know, I think she meant little. Here we go. You're gonna make up 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. We're gonna start together, all right? And we're gonna keep repeating it. 4, 3, 2, go. All right, again, okay? Here we go. And then I'm gonna watch you. Please try one. So, okay, gonna try with me? All of you, the ones writing in the chat box. Yes, we're all in sync. Absolutely, because I'm instructing. Here we go. Count of 4 last time, and then I'm gonna watch you, and then I have a challenge for you, okay? Here we go.
दिल ये फिसला 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 तेरे गोरे बदन पे फिसला तेरे गुलाबी होंठों को देख मैं तो पिघला 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 तुझको ले जाऊंगा मैं खींच के गोवा वाले बीच पे रानी आंखें मींच के ठंडी ठंडी बियर पियेंगे दोनों फोटो खींच के गोवा वाले बीच पे रानी आंखें मींच के ठंडी ठंडी बियर पियेंगे दोनों फोटो खींच के खींच के खींच के खींच के आंखें मींच के आंखें मींच के आंखें मींच के हाय हाय खींच के खींच के खींच के आंखें मींच के आंखें मींच के आंखें मींच के हाय हाय.
You're so good. I'm gonna watch you all. Not lying. You were pretty good. The ones with the cameras on. So if you'd like to turn your camera on now, I'm gonna watch you. You can show off. This is your chance. And remember to breathe again. This young lady, Solange, Maggie, Chelsea, amazing. Nana's gonna do it. Yes, here we go.
Yes, Nana.
Here we go. I love it. I love it. Here we go. I'm gonna count you down. You can see this. You're gonna go. All right.
तुझको लगाऊंगी मैं खींच के गोवा वाले बीच पे बेबी आंखें मींच के ठंडी ठंडी बियर पियेंगे दोनों फोटो खींच के गोवा वाले बीच पे बेबी आंखें मींच के ठंडी ठंडी बियर पियेंगे दोनों फोटो खींच के
I have 2 more minutes left and I have a challenge. My training is, as I said, Afro-Latin, specifically. So Afro-Latin refers to dances brought by the African diaspora, unfortunately through the conquistadora. So the colonialization of, I'm not going to go into that, but it's colonialization of the Spanish when they conquered some of the Latin American countries. Okay, so with the African diaspora also brought with them their culture to certain Latin American countries. And under that branch is this dance, salsa, okay? Merengue, reggaeton, which is kind of new, but cumbia, samba, and bachata, they're all Afro-Latino dances, okay? Dance to predominantly Latin or Spanish-speaking music. And so I would like to play something, again, I argue salsa is from Cuba, but some Puerto Ricans will say no, okay? But every Latin American country that you happen to go to has their own form of dance, okay? But I am gonna play Cuban music because it's fun and it's common. And I would like you to join me, okay? If you would like to turn your camera on now, I'm gonna play this song and I want you to get used to it. And I want you to dance with me and then I'm gonna watch you and that's it. That's all I'm gonna ask and I'm gonna stretch it out with you for like 15 seconds. Here we go, listen to it. Okay, so are you up for the challenge with me? Are you gonna do it with me? Or do you want me to do it once to the music and then you'll do it for me? How about that? Yes, okay. I'm gonna do it for you and then you're gonna do it with me. And I'm gonna do it mostly with male styling, okay? think my screen was changed, but that's okay. I keep pinning myself. So here we go. You ready? You got from the beats very, very fast, but you're gonna do it. It's a challenge for you. You ready? Here we go. And the reason I'm doing this is because Bollywood is kind of hitting more of a belly dancing and Latin genre, if you notice, even with the Goa beach song. So it kind of makes sense. I can get away with salsa. And some of the Bollywood movies are using salsa already. Okay, so here we go. You ready? 5, 4, that's it, Solange. Giveaway is, but there's Solange killed it the whole time, and Tasnia did too, but she's a speaker, so I don't think she gets to win. But here we go. Solange and whoever did participate, we're gonna bring your heart rate down, okay, through deep breathing, because Solange, you moved a lot and you probably were sitting for the hour. So here we go. Nice deep breath in, okay, through your nose and out through your mouth. I'm gonna ask you to do a neck rotation with me. Okay, most of you are sitting, so this is a really nice stretch. And the other way, bringing your chin back. Exactly, shoulder rotation back and forward. Good, we're moving joints with purpose, so we're not swinging, exactly. So we're kind of engaging our biceps and our triceps. We're gonna open up the hip. I know this is the funniest move. And then we're just gonna step back, breathe into that heel. Breathe out, step back, breathe into that heel. A nice deep breath in. And out, and here you go. Thank you very much for joining me. This Energizer, again, my name is Samira, and I want to say this before I go. Albion Neighborhood Services is partnering with me along with 5 other organizations to run a free girls dance and self-defense series, okay? It starts next week with Albion Neighborhood Services on Tuesday, June 1st from 6:30 to 8. We will have Zumba, and then we're going to go right into a street style self-defense. We usually have the Krav Maga Israeli guys come, but this time I decided to choose Gemma. She is Ontario's ex-MMA fighter from Girls Who Fight. She is lovely, and I wanted to support her as well, okay, because like me, she's lost most of her locations. So it's important that we support local as well. And so if you have not registered, it's free. Please talk to Jessica. It's also in the link tree on Albion Boys and Girls Club's Instagram page. And that's all. Enjoy the rest of your session. Bye.
Thanks, Samira.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samira. You got us moving, and I loved everybody dancing. Definitely there's a prize. Solange, you killed it.
Solange.
I will be contacting you after for $30
too, and Maggie did it too.
They're amazing. They're part of the team.
Without cameras on, I'm not sure what you were doing.
I saw Bamboo dancing. He was doing a little head nod, so it works. But Solange, you were amazing. I will contact you after for your $30 Uber Eats card. So we are gonna continue with our speakers. We have an amazing lineup still to go. We're still in India, so we are gonna start back with Armin. Armin is a Crown Prosecutor with the Ministry of Attorney General. She's also the Editor-in-Chief of Bollywood Film Fair Canada, interviews primarily South Asian celebrities and filmmakers to produce content for the magazine. She also writes screenplays and produces films with her sister for Flyaway Films Incorporated, with films such as A Bloody Mess and Future Superheroes to her credit. She's wrapping up 2 scripts right now, a short film and a feature film script currently. Welcome, Armin. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, great. I think I'm on. Okay, thanks so much for having me. I want to start off by saying that listening to everyone speak has been so inspiring, and when Jessica asked me if I would attend, I didn't really know what I would talk about, because being South Asian and then being a Punjabi and then being a Sikh, there are so many layers to that identity. And I wasn't exactly sure how I would talk about 33 years of living with all of these different identities. And the other thing is, I don't really talk with scripts because of the nature of what I do for a living. I'm used to talking off the cuff, and I'm used to talking off the cuff in the courtroom. I have to have a sense of confidence when I'm dealing with defense counsel, when I'm speaking to a judge and prosecuting homicides and sexual assaults, and being in mental health court and addictions court. It's a situation where I'm just so used to talking off the cuff, and I'll do a little bit of that again today, because I wanted to listen to what everyone was saying and try to see if I could bring a bit of a different perspective today. And so, as I said, I'm a Sikh Punjabi. And while I wasn't born in Canada, I was actually born in India, but I was 9 months old when I moved out of India. And my parents, my sister and I moved to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And I was 4, and then we moved to Queens, New York. And when I was 11, we finally moved to Canada. And thankfully, we have stayed in one country since, which is quite nice. So I can tell you that growing up, it was my sister and me. And one of the things that I always heard outside of the 4 walls of my family and outside the 4 walls of my home was, oh, you don't have a brother. And this is I think it's a very cultural thing within Sikhs, within Punjabis, perhaps within South Asians as well. Again, I can't speak to every experience that people have had, but one of the things that I constantly heard was, oh, well, who's going to carry on your name? Who's going to take care of you when you get older? To my parents. And my sister and I sort of, I guess we subconsciously heard that over and over again. And I don't think we necessarily realized that it was going to impact us when we were younger. And I don't think my parents necessarily understood that it was also impacting them. But now, when I look back and I reflect at all the choices that my parents made and the choices that my sister and I made, I realized that all of those comments that floated about being an all-girls household and being South Asian and being Punjabi and being Sikh very much affected the kind of choices we made. So growing up, my father put us in sports. He wanted us to be in sports. He wanted us to excel in sports. He wanted us to know how to dance. He wanted us to know how to carry ourselves. He wanted us to know how to change a tire. He made sure we knew that. He wanted us to excel in academics. And it was interesting because it didn't seem as though it was pressure at the time. And now when I think back to it, I didn't feel pressure at any point. But what I did internalize was that I had to make sure that I proved my worth as a South Asian female. And let me elaborate on that. Let me explain. My father, as well-intentioned as this compliment was, he always used to say, you two are more than sons. My daughters are just like sons. They're equal. And at the time, we processed it as a compliment, that this is a huge compliment. And it's, as I got older, I said to my father, I said, when you say that, you denote that females technically are lower than men. We just happen to be the exceptions. And he thought about it and he said, you're absolutely right. It isn't a compliment to females, to anyone who identifies as females. And so somewhere, somehow, I think that internalized, and my sister and I sort of fought our way through always trying to prove ourselves. And my sister is a filmmaker. She appears on television. She does a lot of that kind of work. She's very creative like that. I stuck to a lot of academics, but through the years taught dance, played sports. I interview celebrities now for the magazine, and I'm in court every single day, now Zoom court these days, but court nonetheless. And it wasn't until I started to think about what I would talk about here that I realized that, sorry, I'm using my work computer and I'm getting work emails at the same time, that I realized that I had internalized all of this pressure that had built for some time. And one of the things that I recognize today is I grew up with a lot of privilege, the privilege of access to education, the privilege of access to healthcare, and that really helped me define who I was and become who I am today. And on paper, I look like I'm doing well. You know, if you pull up my resume, I'm doing well. But I think that given the experiences that I've had, I've recognized that the paper doesn't really mean much. What's on your resume doesn't mean much. Being true to yourself, reflecting every single day, and recognizing the privilege that you come with, and recognizing that you are more than just a resume is extremely important. And it wasn't until I looked back at my experiences that I was able to reflect on that and make sure that I don't define success by what's written on paper, by the degrees you have, by the university or college or trades that you went into. And it's just so important for you to always treat human beings as human beings. And the reason why I took a gender perspective is because we are so used to saying to girls, you're not like other girls. Oh, you play sports really well for a girl. Oh, you're sick. Oh, you must drink. Oh, you guys really know how to drink. Stereotypes that seem to be very light, seem to be almost comical, can actually be extremely offensive. And when I take a step back and I look at all of my different experiences that I've had in my life, I recognize that it's about time that we stop thinking about ourselves as it's very important to think about ourselves with the background that we came from. So South Asian, Sikh, Punjabi, identify as a female and all of that. That's great. That's fantastic. But also recognize that there's a lot of common threads between us. And I think that that's when we unify as a human race. And race is actually a social construct. So while not all brown people are the same, there are a lot of similarities in what we go through. And we need to recognize that what happens in one household may not happen in your household, but may still have an impact on you. So for me, my parents were very empowering, but the external forces around us disempowered us a lot. And I'm just thankful to my parents for really pulling us through that. And when I think about what we can do as citizens, I think that we can just be better. And I think Shika said this, she said, we need to self-reflect and we need to make sure that we are making ourselves better every day. And that's what you thrive for. And that's how you measure success. And I don't think you measure success by a piece of paper, which constantly is drilled into our heads by a lot of the South Asian sort of cultural norms. So that's my bit.
Thank you so much, Armin. It was inspiring and eye-opening. I was reading the chat too. A lot of people were definitely relating. So thank you for sharing. Does anybody have any questions for Armin? I'll read it from the chat. We do see some positive changes in the Western community when it comes to practices that cause gender or racially stereotyped comments and questions. Knowing that, do you think that we can bring changes to these perspectives in the coming future? If so, how?
This is a very interesting question because I think that even within the Western community, there's so many different perspectives that one would have. Do I think that we can bring changes to the perspectives in relation to gender or racial stereotype comments and questions? 100%. I think that one, we need to be a little bit more assertive when we correct somebody. So at work, I'm constantly, my name is always mispronounced, and I could not have a more phonetic name. It's literally Armin. So it's always, it's interesting that people still get it wrong. It's as though they see me and they think, no, she must have a more complicated name. And I constantly correct people. I'll say it's phonetic, it's Armin. And things like, people when, even, sometimes somebody who is a family member, a very close family member will say something like, oh, are you cooking today? And sometimes I look at them and I say, will you ever ask my husband that question? Things like that. You need to start to be a little bit more assertive, and people will take offense to you being offended, but you need to actually call out the practice in the first place. So I think you can do that. You don't have to be disrespectful, but I think we need to be a little bit more assertive in recognizing our identities.
Thank you so much, Armin. That was eye-opening, and I think it's very true.
So thank you, Armin, for coming and sharing. I really appreciate it. So to move on to the next speaker.
I actually love this.
We have Tasnia from Bangladesh. She is a U of T grad and an account executive at Edelman, Canada. Prior to joining Edelman, she served as compliance director for the G7 research group and was lead security researcher for the Global Governance Program. Tasnia sits as the chair of the NATO research group. She also provides geopolitical commentary on various televised broadcast interviews. So welcome, Tasnia. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It sounds so much more impressive when someone says it to me. I just want to thank you for having me first and foremost. And then also, it's been such a pleasure to just be a listener and hear everyone's stories and even the chats on the audience segment. And most importantly, Samira, you took me back to Argentina, which was the last place I visited before the pandemic. So all those salsa flashbacks came through. Don't think I executed it with my body, but that was amazing. So thank you for that. I didn't prepare anything for this discussion or conversation similar to Armin. But I guess I'll start with my upbringing and my story, and maybe there might be a moral somewhere down the line. Actually, before I get into that, maybe I'll talk about how Jessica and Tulir came across me. It was through work. As Jessica mentioned, I'm an account executive at Edelman, and I was part of a workshop, let's call it a workshop, around how to mobilize grassroots movements. And it was really interesting and exciting. And I was in a breakout session with Tulir and Jessica, and I was telling them about how I didn't have the greatest day. I don't think that's what the workshop or like the breakout session was supposed to be about. But I was talking about something that happened at work, which was a shooting in Indianapolis. And it happened at a FedEx distribution facility. And unfortunately, the people who passed away from that mass shooting, a lot of them were from the Sikh Punjabi community. And it was a heavy day for all of us. I was on call to provide some reactive messaging and support my US colleagues. It was hot, and like just a lot was going on at that time. It was, at one point I was thinking that this was just a random mass shooting. Suddenly it became very much, well, the media portrayed it as a racially motivated form of aggression. So it was a lot. What happened later on in that day was interesting to me because my colleague, a white man, was overseeing this account and this file. And he asked me on the side, did not address everyone else in part of the FedEx client team, but addressed me specifically and said, I know your community is being impacted. You must feel so horrible about this. Do you need to take time off? And at first I thought this was sweet. It was nice of someone to, consider like an employee's mental health and a colleague's mental health. But I took a step back and I thought, wait, I think you just grouped me into a community that isn't my community. And it was once again that generalization that tends to happen. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced this. And so I went to my manager, I asked her, I'm like, what do I do about this? And unfortunately, Armin, I didn't do what you advocated, which was, be assertive about where you're from. I did not do that. I was playing the corporate political game, and I was thinking, let me not offend this man right now. And maybe down the line, it could be an educational experience. But that was a really weird and awkward moment for me, where it was like, I want to educate you. I know you're coming from a good place, but it just wasn't executed correctly. And so my response to him was, I was just like, it's a heavy day for all of us, but I'm okay. I'm okay to keep going. So that's how Jess and Thulir got in contact with me and was like, you're right, not all brown people are the same. So with that, I'll move into my story, which is I'm from Bangladesh. I was born in Malaysia, and I came here pretty young. I think I was 5 years old. And fortunately for me, I've grown up in ethnic enclaves, whether it was Scarborough or Brampton. So thankfully, I haven't really experienced overt racism because I grew up in communities where everyone kind of looked like me, which is a blessing, but also you miss out on a bit more of the multicultural feeling that you get from other areas of Canada. When I was thinking about how being South Asian impacted me and the way that it impacts me, it comes across in many ways. But first, I'll show you this painting. But it's a very traditional scene in Bangladesh. Like if you go to a village in Bangladesh, this is what you'll see. And the amount of corporate calls I've had where someone's asked me, what on earth is that, is unreal. But it's basically two oxen that are very malnourished and two Bengali men that are kind of pushing the oxen to move across the field, who are equally malnourished. And it's a testament of my humble roots. And so it's very much a part of me, and I take that sentiment with me in everything that I do. When it came to my career, I grew up in a household where every conversation was dominated by what's happening back at home, because a lot of the family friends we would have over, the uncles, they would constantly talk about, we escaped the political insecurity of Bangladesh, just the mass amounts of corruption. And at the same time, we would talk about other things that are happening around the world, specifically the Israeli-Palestinian issue, which we all know isn't a new issue by any means. And it really shaped what I wanted to be a part of, which was this really big conversation around, look at how privileged we are to live in a country like this and not have to worry about our health and our physical security and even our freedom as much as other parts of the world. And so it really impacted where I went in my life, which was international relations. And when I think about the other aspect of being South Asian, it's not, how do I word this? I feel like it's a constant negotiation that I'm having. And that's a weird way to put it, but with me and my parents, who I love very dearly, they are absolute gems. But all throughout my life, it's been a constant negotiation between their values and the Bengali cultures, a culture that they want me to obey and kind of take in completely, versus my values and what I see for myself that works for my lifestyle. And it's been ongoing. And so the one thing I did ask my parents, because I told them that I was going to do this discussion, is when did you realize when we came to Canada that, your daughter, your only daughter, isn't going to be a traditional Bengali girl? And they said within 4 days of me starting kindergarten. And I wrote it down. Their two giveaways was, one, I came home one day, and while my dad was being very upset at me and was yelling at me, I was looking at my dad's eyes. And it threw my dad off because traditionally in a Bengali setting, when your dad or your mom is yelling at you, you look down. You don't look them in the eyes. They get even more upset if you do that. And then the second thing that I did within a couple of days is my parents asked me to do something. And instead of obliging and doing it immediately, I asked why. And so from that moment on, it's been a constant trend towards me questioning and asking why. And it's everything from what I want to do for a living to what I want to wear, how I want to do my makeup, where I want to go over the summer. Can I get on that flight? And what I've learned really quickly was that I was incredibly upset and did not come across the best way possible when I was younger, because I was trying to accommodate my parents a lot and trying to live up to their expectations of being this very wholesome and very obedient daughter. And that was fully embracing the Bengali culture, but also Muslim, just Muslim tenets as well. And so it was very complicated, and I was angry as a child because I was trying to balance both. And the moment I said, I'm going to be authentically myself, was the moment that things kind of shifted, and I was not as angry. I was living authentically myself. And that was a really big moment. I wouldn't say it was immediate. It was, as I said, a constant negotiation. It was a little push and pull for many years, and it's still a negotiation. For example, last weekend, I came home at 1:30 a.m. My father, not impressed. He thought I was going to be home at 11:30. And he was just like, no Bengali girl comes home at this time. I was like, yeah, but I do. So what I want to say is similar to what Umang was saying as well, when he was thinking about self-worth. My mom's self-worth to me is not the same as what I think self-worth is to me. For my mom, self-worth and even the value of me as a woman, as a Bengali woman, is having children and being married by this point. For me, it's a lot different. But what I will say is whatever that means to you, that's all that matters. Whether it's the clothes you wear, the career you go into, the activities you like, your hobbies, your interests, your friend groups, whatever it is, just be authentically you. Life is very short. And yeah, that's about it on my end.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tasmia, for sharing. And honestly, you were one of our first speakers that we really just got. We went there, and I know we were supposed to do something totally different in that breakout room. It was actually an advocacy workshop that BGC Canada put together for all of us AIM participants who got the grant. And I know we were supposed to talk about something totally different, but as soon as I heard you when we were talking, I was like, I want her. I want her to come. And I texted Jessica immediately. I was like, I want her. She has to be one of the speakers at the event. And that's why we even did informal setting, because it's just the best way to give out your information, right?
100%. Thank you. I used that workshop as a therapy session for me. So thank you.
Well, glad we were able to help. And thank you so much for coming and sharing. Does anyone have any questions or any other queries for Tasmia?
I think she's talking from like a Bengali background. Any of the issues that do you face Bengalis have any of that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting. I once, this is how like my parents and what they went through comes to light in present day, but my parents were very young when we were going through the separation from West and East Pakistan. And I decided to date a very wonderful Pakistani boy a couple of years ago. And my parents were all for it until they heard that he was from Pakistan. And for me, I didn't understand because I was just like, I like a boy. That is all. But for them, their trauma came to the forefront where it was all of a sudden like, we can't have that. And it's really sad. But I think what's beautiful is that as we see newer generations, like our generation, and we're growing up together, we don't bring that trauma here. It can be a part of us. We can make it our own trauma, but it's important not to do that. So yeah, that was one of those experiences where it was something that happened so many years ago, and still people hold on to it, which is sad to see, but it's quite a reality. I see another question, but it's a bonus when your work becomes therapeutic for yourself. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tasnia. We really appreciate you coming through. And I mean, I believe in like everything happens for a reason. So that meeting was to bring some Bengali culture into tonight's event. So thank you so much.
Of course.
So up next, we are gonna travel a little more one last time. So we have Delani here, who is a Tamil youth outreach worker, professional photographer, yoga teacher, and co-founder of Kudai Center, which is a transitional home, a place to transition into independent women. Her academic background is in mental health, psychology, and linguistics, with research experience in child language acquisition and neurolinguistics. Sorry guys, I suck with pronunciation of some words, so here's Delani.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll just get started. Hi everybody, or good evening. I hope you're doing okay, all things considered right now, and thank you for being here tonight and being here for this late into the event. It's been really nice to hear everyone else's stories and backgrounds from, you know, being a person of brown color. So, and also thank you to the organizers of this event. I think the title pretty much sums it up. Not all brown people are the same. And this is something that I think about a lot. I've been thinking about it since that one time when I was a kid and got into an elevator and someone asked me, where are you from? And then they quickly proceeded to say India, right? And I almost started to say, no, I'm not Indian. My family is Sri Lankan. But then I stopped trying to explain to a stranger and I just said, yeah. And yeah was easier than the baffled, stunned, frozen feeling I would feel after hearing someone say Tamil, like Tamil tiger. And I was about 10 at the time. And now that I've learned a bit more about myself and where my family is from and my multiple identities, I would think about answering that question differently now. So yes, my ancestors are from the Indian subcontinent and I am South Asian. My skin is brown, not very dark brown or very light brown, some kind of in-between brown. And it's a kind of brown that makes Tamil people say you don't look Tamil. I don't feel proud that my passport says I'm Sri Lankan or that it's the easiest thing to select on an online form when I scroll down to the letter S. I would say I'm Tamil. I speak the Tamil language. I was raised in Tamil culture. Growing up, my Tamilness was symbolized by the dot between my eyebrows. And my singleness to this day is signified by the dot between my eyebrows being black and not red like other married women across South Asia. But I'm not just Tamil because of the language we speak in my home or the music or clothes or culture I'm immersed in. I'm Tamil in the way my parents and their parents are from the occupied land called Ulam or Ilangay in northeast Sri Lanka. I'm Tamil in the way my parents and grandparents fled a war, actually a genocide, by the Sri Lankan majority government against Tamil minorities. And this makes the land that my parents came from an unsafe place to return to for a family vacation during the summer. We don't really have a home to go back to. I'm brown and I'm Tamil in the way my family landed on the corner of Wellesley and Parliament in the 90s and then worked hard to build a home in Scarborough with the very limited skills and English language skills that they had. I'm not like any Indian person I know or South Asian person I know. I don't feel that the term Desi includes Tamil people or Sri Lankan people. I feel that there's an inherent racism or shadism towards Tamil people from lighter skinned South Asians or North Indians, which becomes even more apparent in industries like Bollywood. And I don't see myself represented in mainstream media showcasing brown bodies. And even when stories and films are told about Ulam Tamil people, it's not from a first voice place. It's other people like Deepa Mehta directing films like Funny Boy or actresses painting blackface to tell an inaccurate story of an Ulam female freedom fighter. And it's frustrating, and the nonchalance of the rest of the world as all of this goes on is even more frustrating. And probably the only two famous people that most of us might know who are close to being brown and Tamil like me are MIA, the singer and artist, and Maitreyi Ramakrishnan recently, who is the main actor on the show Never Have I Ever. So, and even then, I'm not like them. Our ancestors just happen to share similar histories, and I'm not necessarily like other Ulam Tamil Canadians living even in Scarborough. None of us are exactly like each other, and we all have different intersecting identities and privileges, and none of us can speak for each other just as brown people. So I'm brown and I'm Tamil, but I'm also a woman. I'm a settler in Canada. I'm an artist. I'm a community youth worker. I'm a nonprofit founder. I'm a sister. I'm the daughter of a single mother. I'm the daughter of an alcoholic father. I'm the granddaughter of someone with Alzheimer's. I'm a mentor to a few people. I'm a friend. I'm a yoga teacher and a student. I was born into a Hindu family of a certain caste and class. I'm a human being and I am a soul. I feel very privileged to have access to some things like receiving mental health therapy in ways that my ancestors did not. And my being feels very complicated, and at times it also feels very heavy and burdened. Yet when I come across other Ulam Tamil Canadians like me scrambling to make a living in the suburbs of Northeast Scarborough instead of scrambling for life in Northeast Sri Lanka, there is an unspoken understanding. The trauma that was passed down through our family's genes, the patriarchy that still runs strong in South Asian communities, the nervous look of young women and men who want to remain invisible, anonymous, and protected from gossiping people of our own community. The lack of intimacy or open dialogue, the lack of proper healthy parenting, coping with all of this in ways that are soothing but not necessarily healthy. It's strange how the effects of our histories and the complicated web of all of this and its intersections with other brown people in a capitalist, white supremacist world actually somehow connects us. And us brown people, we're not all the same, but I feel that we can all relate to each other on some telepathic level or some common ground. Sometimes we bond over the excitement for stunning South Asian jewelry, and sometimes we nod and share comforting silence, acknowledging the pain of family violence. I don't really have a final remark on any of this, but I am very grateful for this platform today and this time to talk tonight, because I don't usually get into all of this when people ask me, where are you from? So thank you. I'm enjoying hearing what being brown is like for other folks here. I don't usually open up about my identity like this and have a dialogue. So if anyone has questions, I'm interested in knowing what you might be curious about, and you can either ask me in this space or you can connect with me at a later time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delani. I know reading that made me, it made me kind of emotional hearing your story. So thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing so much. For me, I'm still learning a lot too, so I appreciate that. Is there anybody that has questions for Delani? So there's a question in the chat that asks, have you ever encountered bullying and racism by your own race?
Oh my gosh, yes for me, sorry. But like, I'm like a colored person, like a Black person. So basically, people like my race, if you're lighter Black, they'll be like, oh my gosh, so pretty. But if you're like darker Black, they'll be like, oh, you're not as pretty as the lighter people. Like, yeah, that's true.
Thank you, Solange, for sharing that. Delani, how about you? Have you ever encountered bullying or racism?
You know, it wasn't directly towards me, but what Solange said just reminded me of this event that I went to, and I was sitting at a table. It was a yoga event, and a white friend who got into yoga came to this event with me, and she was sitting next to me, and there was another Tamil girl, but that Tamil girl happened to be very light-skinned, had a sharp nose, very Eurocentric beauty. And the white girl who was next to me said, whoa, she doesn't look Tamil, she's so beautiful. She doesn't look Sri Lankan at all. And that felt like racism, that felt offensive to me, because what she was describing as beautiful was just, you know, these Eurocentric beauty standards. But of course, yeah, like when I go into space and say, someone says, you don't look Tamil, and offers that as a compliment, that feels racist, that I take offense to that. And then, you know, I think as all, South Asian people can probably understand, is you spend a summer in the sun and then you come back and some auntie will tell you, oh, you got too dark. And yeah, racism and shadism is definitely part of our culture, for sure.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing and coming through, Delaney. I hope to have you at more of our events in the future, because I love the way you speak and how poetic everything that you said was.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So to move on to our next speaker will be Sureka, who was born and raised in North York. She is a body positivity and body neutrality advocate who tries to help people feel seen and heard by sharing her story as a plus-size woman growing up with Tamil and South Asian cultures. Welcome, Sureka. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, everyone. So as Thulir said, I'm a plus size content creator as one of the many hats I wear. So Instagram's all about sharing your experience in a visual way. So I'm going to share some pictures while I talk to help me share my experience as a fat person in the South Asian community. And here we go. So first of all, I'd like to thank Thulir and BGC Albion for having me today as a speaker. Growing up, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in media or anywhere really. Plus size brown women and plus size Tamil women weren't really in any roles growing up that I saw. I'd also just like to say thank you to all the speakers. I feel like I know a lot about the South Asian community being in it, but I also learned so much today. And I also resonated a lot with Delaney's talk just before mine. Really amazing overview of what it's like to be a Tamil person in Toronto and the GTA. So let's dive into my story. So I was born at the old Humber River Hospital near Jane and Finch, just down the street from the apartment building where my mom, dad, and older brother lived. This is my family. So my parents came to Canada a few years prior to escape the war in Sri Lanka that targeted Tamil folks like my family. Although they had both experienced immense trauma from one of my parents losing their home and their entire city and village, to my other parent losing a sibling, they were so thrilled to have our little family. So we grew up together in this little apartment, and then we moved around the city to then live in the Humber Summit neighborhood, which is just adjacent to the Albion neighborhood. And they worked really hard to make sure we always had food on our table. We always had a birthday celebration, and they were great parents. But as many of us know, even with all the love and good intentions our parents have, there are a lot of toxic behaviors that are unfortunately passed down. So just a content warning for the rest of my little talk. I'm going to be talking about a little bit of diet culture and fat phobia in the South Asian community. So if any of those topics resonate with you, make sure to take care of yourself. Yeah, so first and foremost, as a fat person, I experienced a lot of fat phobia growing up. So this little chubby bundle of joy was always a chubby little bundle of joy. And my extended family never let me forget it. Whenever I was talked about, my weight was the focal point of conversations, not the amazing grades I got or the walls full of awards that I had or the volunteer work that I did. It was always something around the lines of, she gained all this weight and it never came off. And then it was, I don't know why she's not losing any weight. And then it was, if you don't stop gaining weight, they're gonna have to cut you out of your home someday. As you can imagine, it was really hard to hear a lot of this as a kid, especially when it just continued to get meaner and more consistent. So discussions about my body were just as much part of family gatherings as I was. I'd hear a lot of, oh, melin zatavo, which means, oh, she lost weight, or kuri kunabora, she keeps continuing to gain weight. And then justifications on why they think my weight fluctuated in whatever direction they had decided that week. So being constantly told by people who were supposed to love me the most that my body was a problem made me think that my body was a problem. So they would also tell me the ways that I can lose weight to gain their respect and deserve their respect. So drink a glass of water before a meal so you feel fuller faster, or don't eat bread, or insert like any other fad diet idea here. And I tried it all, but I never stuck with it because it didn't make my body feel good. And that made me disappointed in myself. It made me feel like I wasn't strong enough to stick to anything that I was told was good for me. It took me all of the 24 years of my life on this planet to realize everything that they were suggesting, all of these fad diet ideas, are not good for my body. Depriving your body of food doesn't help at all, and is so harmful. Diets don't work, unfortunately. They show short-term results, but studies like one from UCLA show that over 50% of people who go on diets end up gaining all the weight that they lost back, and then some, even 5 years after the diet's over. So, and I could like go on about diet culture and how messed up it is, but I'll focus on my journey. So for years after struggling with my weight and not knowing how harmful diet culture was, in my first year of university, I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I was terrified. I had a Tamil OBGYN at the time, and she just looked at my file after sending me for all these tests and said very matter-of-factly, "This is the condition you have." She wrote me a prescription, and that was it. I had no information about what it meant for my life, or anything of that sort. So for years, I didn't tell anyone, didn't talk about it, didn't try to think about it, because all I knew was I had this scary condition that I thought no one else had, because I didn't know anyone else who ever talked about it. Fast forward a couple of years, I find my voice, I find my power. I start learning to not only accept my body for what it is, but to celebrate my body for all it's done. And there's a lot of backstory for how I got to this point, involving finding clothes that finally fit me right and made me feel beautiful in them and fashionable, learning how BMI isn't an accurate measure of health, and also learning that a lot of fat bodies were stigmatized for the purpose of making the diet industry profitable and to be able to sell their products. And that's a whole other talk that would take a lot more than 10 minutes, but I'm more than happy to talk about it at another time. And through this self-discovery, I started my Instagram page to show folks who look like me that they aren't alone in this world. Like I thought I was when I was growing up, because I didn't see anyone who looked like me, who was brown or Tamil, who was a woman, who was plus size, who was celebrated in the media. And through my page, I started to connect with a lot of South Asian folks who also have PCOS. I learned through these connections that PCOS is actually quite common in the South Asian community, and it wasn't talked about when I was growing up, because talking about PCOS meant talking about topics that were taboo in Tamil culture, in the South Asian community, and in Canadian culture, like menstruation, abnormal facial hair growth in women, and also weight gain. So finding all of these folks who went through similar experiences helped me finally stop avoiding the thoughts of PCOS. And I finally had the strength to mentally add having PCOS to one of the many factors that make up who I am. I actually added it to my Instagram bio just before New Year's of this year. And that's the first time I openly stated that I have PCOS to a large audience. So I added it there so that anyone who comes to my page and has PCOS knows that there are others like them out there and they don't feel so alone. So through all the talks today, we've learned how different South Asian folks can be through all the different roots we have, different languages we speak, and the incredibly different and varying experiences we go through. But even though we have all those differences, a lot of us have some shared experiences, as I'm sure other folks have very similar experiences in terms of body shaming and navigating PCOS. which I learned through talking to South Asian folks who find my page on Instagram and thank me for sharing my experiences to help them feel like they're not such a different person. So we are all different in this big, beautiful South Asian family, but we can derive some power from sharing our experiences and knowing we're not alone. So that's my story, from being constantly told to change my body and thinking that I was this isolated person who had experiences that no one else did, to then embracing my body and knowing I wasn't alone in my experiences. And there's definitely a lot more to my story that I couldn't fit into these 10 minutes for today. So I put my Instagram handle at the bottom of this slide if you want to take a picture or a screenshot or whatever to connect later, but I'm more than happy to chat about any of the topics you heard today. And thank you all for your time. I don't know if we have time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can look at the chat.
Thank you, Sureka, for coming. Honestly, so relatable. I've heard the whole Melinchitavo, Kondankuri. Oh my God, that was so relatable. It's like they have no, like filter. They just say everything they want to say. Especially when I used to have like my acne issues and things like that. Gosh, super relatable. So thank you so much for coming. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions, you can ask them in the chat or unmute.
Yeah, I see a lot of comments of people who had similar experiences.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I really admire you for sharing your story. I think it's incredibly brave of you. And this is something that I know many South Asians, including myself, have dealt with and spend the rest of our lives dealing with. And I think we need more people like you who are very open and honest about your experiences. And I think like all of these beauty standards are really rooted in patriarchy and, oh, my home phone is ringing, sorry.
That's okay.
Colonialism, like there are so many layers to this, and it's just a comment, really. There's no question. Like, kudos to you, and keep fighting the good fight.
Oh, thank you so much. I think, yeah, everything you said, I definitely resonate and agree with. A lot of beauty standards are rooted in anti-Black behaviors and just colonialism in general. So yeah, thank you so much. I will keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you so much, Sureka. And I think also me being a big girl my whole life, I definitely love your page, love what you've been sharing. And I think you're creating a great platform for young South Asian women out there. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. Again, guys, if you do want to connect with Sureka, her Instagram is actually tagged in our Instagram page, so you can see her and follow her and reach out to her. So thank you, Sureka, one more time. Our last speaker of the evening, last but not least, is Shiv, who is a chemical engineer who loves to use food to bring people together. He is the founder of Cocoa Pot Corporation and currently works as a serialization specialist at Apotex Incorporated.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Delani, that was chills. I was sitting here getting chills. And Sureka, thank you for sharing your story. Yes, I'm Tamil. Yes, I'm Canadian. But the stories you just heard are completely different than mine. And I came to this to learn. My experiences are very, very different than the majority of yours. So again, thank you for everyone for sharing their stories. I'm here to listen. Hopefully, you embrace something that I say. Maybe you don't, maybe you do, but just thinking about it, 15-year-old me or 12-year-old me, sitting in this type of setting, I don't think I would be here. I don't think I would have been participating in a conference at that time. So whoever is on the line, good for you. Good for you, for sitting on this line. I think this stuff is really important. It changes lives, and I only realized it later, and now I hope I'm doing my part to share it and share that with the younger generation. So we'll get started. I don't have anything to present. I've been working a long day, but I just wanted to share my story specifically on the food side. But before I get to the food, because I think you guys are smart. You guys put me last, so people wouldn't be starving in the beginning, because I was going to show you some food videos, but I'll leave it to the end. Yeah, so my story, so I was born in Toronto, raised in Mississauga. Similar to Delani and Sarika, my parents were from Jaffna, or from northern part of Sri Lanka. They fled from a war, and they came here with very little to give us a great life. And I'm very privileged, and I think we're very self-aware of what we have. Got an education, got into sports, did everything that I really wanted to get to, because my parents did everything. They really provided, so I'm very grateful for that. And I went to school for chemical engineering, did a bunch of co-ops in between at Ryerson, and did a bunch of pharmaceutical co-ops. I think I realized in between that chemical engineering wasn't really for me. I think the engineering perspective was cool. You learn how to problem solve, but then I realized it wasn't for me. So I took a job with Maple Leaf Foods through their leadership program, and I just wanted to experience different roles, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I think a lot of you are in that same position. In high school, I don't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to play sports all the time. That didn't happen. But I went into these roles trying to, I went to this rotational program, moving from a supervisor role to a sales role, and you get to meet all these different peoples of life. And when I was in my sales role, I really realized that I really stood out, right? And when I was in elementary school, high school, and pretty much middle school, I was maybe 2 or 3 of the Tamil people in my school. And in university, it changed me. But at Maple Leaf is when I really, really realized, when I'm being in sales, because I was the one brown person in the whole sales force. So that stood out to me. And I took what I got from Maple Leaf, and I wanted to create a business that I was proud of. One that was able to give back to our community, because my parents raised me with first giving. Regardless of what you have, you give, because at the end of the day, it'll come back to you. And I still preach this, because I'm lucky that of what we have, because what my parents have gone through, I could never imagine. What some of you guys have gone through, I could never imagine, because I was never there. I was never in those positions. So going from Maple Leaf to start Cocoa Hut, I started it, and Cocoa Hut is my small business that I run, which is a fusion Tamil restaurant that does pop-ups. And I started it while I was at Maple Leaf. And the inspiration that I got was, I want to do something that represents Tamil people, but white people, Black people, Oriental, Asian people, anyone can get pulled into it. It's not just for Tamil people, right? And the idea was not to set up a restaurant. The idea was to actually, I wanted to see a Tamil product in a Walmart, in a Longo's, in a No Frills. That's what I wanted to see. I go grocery shopping all the time. I'm a huge foodie. I'm always eating. I'm a food blogger on the side as well, but I'm always eating. And what I wanted to see is, I wanted to see a Tamil product in here, not just at a Tamil store. I want to see it in a retail store where, Maple Leaf Foods owns 70% and 70% of all meat in all retail. I want to see at least one Tamil product in a store. You can't, right? So, and it's starting to come, into smaller businesses and smaller, like mom and pop retail stores. But that was my goal. And I was stuck on this point of, like, what am I going to introduce? Like, I have so many food ideas. What am I going to introduce? How are people going to catch it? How are people going to catch onto it? So I took a little bit of, touring of, traveling and eating and, stuffing myself to realize what people like, or what kind of gauges people. And I wanted to sell coconut sambal, which is something that we eat with roti, we eat with dosa. If you guys don't know what these foods are, you guys should look it up, because it'll be nice for your stomach. But I wanted to sell this product because you couldn't buy it in a retail store. You can get it at restaurants, but it would usually expire in a few days, because you need to keep it refrigerated, right? It's coconut. But what it tastes like is it's like spiced coconut with so much flavor that you can put on anything, right? And that was my goal. But I said, you know what? No one's gonna buy this. If I just put this stuff out there, they're not gonna know how to use it, right? My friend Jason is gonna look at me. He's just like, what is that? And that's what I got in the beginning. I put this stuff on food for my friends, and like, what's that orange stuff? What's that carrot mash? Right. And I wanted to explain that this is something that my heritage, we eat. And once you know it, you may like it, you may not, but you're gonna know it, and it kind of educates you on that purpose. So what I did was, there's this whole hot chicken or fried chicken phase going on, and I don't know if you guys like fried chicken, but if you are, shoot me a message in the chat. I want to see how much fried chicken or hot tofu lovers, because we do vegan as well, are in the chat. But I thought, let's create a sandwich that incorporates coconut sambal, Tamil spices, and share it, and just share it with people. So I did it with friends, and I shared it with some friends, and like, this is really good. Can we get more next week? And I kind of looked at them like, I don't know. I have a full-time job. I can't really do this every week. And the orders kept coming in, but then I realized, if people start eating this type of food, they're gonna start, asking these questions of, what is this? What are Tamil people, right? And that was what I wanted to do in the first place, is to break that barrier of, if you like this food, you probably gonna want to learn about those people. And I'm gonna put this reference out there. If I go and eat, let's say butter chicken, and I really enjoy it, and I keep eating butter chicken the next day, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, do you think I'm going to be racist to those type of people? Do you think I'm going to be racist to those Indian people who created butter chicken, or even for Jamaican people who do jerk chicken? If you like jerk chicken, how can you, eat their food and then discriminate them behind your backs? So that's what I wanted to showcase with the brand. Yes, we do hot chicken. Yes, we do hot tofu. But the main piece was, you're going to ask those questions of what that coconut sambal is, what those spices are, because that may break that ignorance of understanding who those Tamil people are, right? And that's what I wanted to showcase. And honestly, guys, that was the biggest message that I wanted to show, is that food is so powerful that it brings people together. And I think I have this skill before food to bring people together, but I was not embracing my culture before. I was just bringing people together just to have a good time. I want to bring people together to embrace our culture. I don't want to, hide it. I want to embrace it. And I think someone touched about it before, is, they're hiding their lunches at school, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I didn't. My parents kind of protected me in that sense, where they didn't want to give it to us. They knew, kids would get bullied. And, I watched, I've seen kids get bullied. So my parents protected me and that stuff. But what I'm saying to you guys now is, embrace your culture. It'll give you something that you'll never know. Because a few years ago, when I was traveling to different places of the world and I'm trying to understand their culture, I wasn't accepting my own. And now I do, and I'm so proud of it, that I get to share it through food with people. And I'm going to keep doing it. Even though I have a full-time job, I'm going to keep doing it until I can't, or if it becomes my full-time job, and that's my goal. And that's all I have, guys. I know I probably went a little too long, but I hope you guys aren't too hungry.
No, that was amazing, Shiv. I've had the sandwiches from Coco, and I definitely recommend everybody try it. I'm gonna pop this in. I think he's doing a pop-up next week. So like, that's actually one of our prizes tonight.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share one video with you guys before you guys eat your dinner. I'm not sure if you guys heard that or saw that.
We saw
but
it.
if you didn't, did you guys get the audio or no?
No, we didn't get the audio, but it's okay. The food spoke for itself.
That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, that's our Jaffna hot chicken sandwich. Yeah, and you guys plugged me already. I'm gonna be at the Cheese Boutique June 5th and June 6th until we sell out. So come down and enjoy.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you, Sarika, Tasnia, Delani, Armin, for sharing your stories. We hope you all enjoyed this event with Shika, Ilya, Khadija, and Umang speaking in the first half, and the little dance energizer we had with Samara. I enjoyed the event, and I hope you did just as much as I did. But before we wrap up the event, we have our other youth coordinator, Jordan, here, who's just going to quickly share some insightful thoughts of his own.
Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, I did a workout earlier. And I definitely was yelling. Sorry about that. So I'm just gonna, she introduced me, I'm Jordan. I'm just gonna quickly speak to you guys about allyship and what I do for the South Asian community myself. So I just quickly looked up the definition because I just wanted to get the right definition. And it's a person who advocates for the human rights and marginalized and vulnerable people by challenging discrimination and stereotypes. All right, yeah, Jordan's in the house. Basically, I tried to do this for everybody, and I, especially with Jessica being one of my best friends, I really try to do this for the South Asian and Indian community. So, in general, promoting inclusion, calling out discrimination, advocating for the oppressed, educating yourself and others, giving empathy to the oppressed or other different communities and people that are different than you. Also championing other races, religions, and beings. But with this being said, when it comes, what up, T? With this being said, the main thing for me is it's behind the scenes, right? It's when no one's there. A lot of people, from my experience, will post stuff, will post stuff and say stuff and educate themselves, right? And read stuff. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like most people do it for self-affirmation and to make themselves feel better about what they're doing, make themselves feel like they're a good person. But for me, I think that comes in with, no, it's all Jessica, all Jessica. I'm just speaking. And yeah, it just comes down to like actually doing this stuff behind the scenes, actually doing this when no one's there, right? I feel like a lot of people will post stuff, read stuff, and then they'll come back into the house and they'll say some stuff or say dirty things about other people. With that being said, I challenge everybody to make sure that when you're reading stuff and educating yourself, you're coming home, and if somebody in your family, like for example, my family's pretty good with this stuff, but if someone in my family says anything about an Indian person, a South Asian person, I will put them on blast. Because at the end of the day, I actually care, right? When you actually care, you do this when no one's there, right? When you actually care, when you have, because everyone will have discriminatory views and biases in their mind, but you need to do something about it. That's what happens when you actually care, right? Also, when you actually care and you actually want to learn and be educated through this process, you should not care to feel ignorant, because every single person is ignorant. Everyone is ignorant. So I will go to Jessica and ask questions and I'll be like, excuse my ignorance. And then she will educate me. That's the only, I honestly feel like that's the only way that you can actually be a proper ally, is to humble yourself and allow yourself to understand that again, extreme ignorance is different, but everybody is ignorant to their own biases and to their own being. So for myself, and Jessica knows this, I will literally send her a post and be like, what do you think? Can you please educate me? What can you tell me on this? I feel like a lot of people think, oh, because I eat butter chicken, I'm cultured. And I'll let everybody know I don't eat that, but I'm probably more cultured than a lot of people that are not of that are not of the race or of that race. So I just think it's important to have like genuine conversations and understanding of things. Listen to different, if you can, listen to their music. Just educate yourself with your culture as much as you can. And yeah, I have a lot more, but honestly, this went on pretty long, so I'm not gonna overdo it or anything like that. But basically, all I'm trying to say to you is have empathy for your community and for yourself, first and foremost, and then champion other people's community. The only way that you can actually have empathy is if you have empathy for yourself. So I'm a Black male, Black Lives Matter. And I'll use Khadija, for example. Her and I had a conversation one day, and I said, Khadija, I love that you're for your people. And she's like, yeah, but I'm for everyone. But I'm like, you're for your people, which allows you to be more for everyone as well. And I appreciate that. For watching her be like that, I now champion my people more. And with that, I champion others. So please protect your culture, protect your people, protect others, and let's love. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jordan. I think that was very well said, and I definitely agree with that. We challenge each other on a lot of topics, and I think it helps educate us as a group. And I know as all the youth workers that work with Albion, we all do this together. We definitely do share a lot of topics together, especially what's going on. And we definitely just want to be more educated together. So on that note, thank you all for attending. Not all brown people are the same. This was our first time hosting it, and we hope to have more in the years to come to celebrate that diversity within our club. We do have giveaways coming, but I'm going to give it to Talir because this girl worked so hard on this since the grant came through. Endlessly, Ayan's been her backbone, and Bambo, Maggie, Nana, Tanya today, all the staff, all of our placement students, thank you so much for all the support. Girthana jumped in at the last second and she took the bull by the horns, and thank you so much for the support that you've been giving.
Yes, I'm literally about to cry. I don't know why, but this is just a sign, you know, hard work does really pay off. And this is something I've always wanted, just to relate to what other people have said, right? I personally have also not had a lot of people that I see through social media or to mentor me on different issues, right? I did have a very supportive parent, my mom, who supported me through everything. And you know, just to talk about my mom and our family and Tamil people, right? I wanted to talk about my culture and where I came from, and that's where this event came from, right? And that's where this idea came from. And so I'm really grateful for everything. I still remember the day Ayan called and told me about the event and told me about the opportunity to apply and get it. So I'm really grateful to everyone, to Ayan, Jessica, Bambo, Maggie for helping me with media stuff, Girthana for literally the script and everything, so much advice, and all the speakers, thank you all for coming. I actually don't know most of you on a personal note, but the curiosity was killing me, honestly, of what you all were going to talk about, but you all killed it, and I'm so happy and pleased with how this event turned out to be. So I'm really happy, and I'm so thankful that all of you guys came to participate, to talk, and to educate each other, because that's what we should do on a daily basis, to learn about each other and educate each other, right? So yeah. And on that note,
Talir.
We'll go to the...
Thank you all so much for joining us today. A big thank you to BGC Canada for providing Talir with the anti-racism microgrant that made this event possible. Ayan for her support in Talir's project. Bambo and Maggie for the graphics that you've seen on our social media all of this month. The youth staff for their support today, all of the you for attending, Talir for your hard work, our guest speakers for sharing their experiences and being so open and vulnerable. Just so you know, our summer camp information will be shared out very soon. This is for youth ages 11 plus. It'll be posted in the coming weeks on our Instagram page, which is BGC Albion. So definitely make sure you're following us so you can get in your registration as soon as possible. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being so patient. We went almost a whole hour over planned, but let's be honest, we're brown. We never do anything on time. So thank you all. Have a great night and enjoy. The winners,
but not all brown people are right.
Via email. Ayan, Jordan wants some brown boy music.
I'm doubting. You already know I love it.
Okay, Jordan's gonna do a quick dance if you want to see Jordan dance.
No.
There it is.
Come on, after that workout.
Come on, man. Follow the playlist.
Is it Brown Moutier? Is it Brown Moutier?
Yes, that's the exact song. Ayan, just play the first song.
Yes.
Jordan's about to go off, so if anybody wants to see the after party,
I blasted in my car.
You hear it?
I'm dead serious.
A little higher.
ਹੰਬੋ ਟੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੇੜੀ ਸੁੱਟੀ ਹਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਹੀ ਦੇਸੀ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸੁਣੇ ਬਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਦੀ ਵੇਵ ਆ ਨਾ ਭਾਲਦੇ ਕੋਫੇ ਵਗਾਉਣਾ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਲਿਰਿਕਸ ਹੈ ਚੰਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਨਾ ਠੱਲਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਕਲਾਉਨ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਬਰਾਉਨ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਜੇ ਗੀਤਾ ਟਰੈਪ